energy transition has really shifted into high gear, and there's been a great deal of focus on renewable energy development. But have we baked in enough flexibility to ensure the energy transition moves forward? Louis, what are your thoughts on this?
Very good question, Pam. I think the key thing is that flexibility is a necessity good. It is something you absolutely have to make everything else happen. And your renewable transition can't happen without a good flexibility strategy. And to make a good flexibility strategy effective, it means you have to have efficient and working grids. It means you need to have the full basket of technologies to actually make that system flexible. And without that mindset that you're dealing with something very systemic where a lot of factors interplay with each other, you can't map an effective energy transition.
Louis, you talk about a basket of technologies. Am I correct that it's not just one technology that you're looking to?
Spot on. It's not just us. There's multiple companies, there's multiple role players. This goes all the way from demand side management to new ways that utilities are exploring their markets, all the way up to grid design, grid optimization, not maximization, through to battery storage, and of course, your thermal generation, which you're going to need to make the full basket of goods work.
My next question to you is, do we have sufficient flexibility? If not, how do we get more? And you mentioned earlier policy. So talk to me a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing for us. In fact, it's so important we've centered a whole marketing campaign around this called Every Second Counts. And the point of this is not just about getting a bias to action, but it's also understanding that the second today and the second in 5 years' time and the second in 10 years' time, in terms of having that grid balanced, is a very different second. And that brings you not only to your technology mix, but how your policy needs to keep up with that. You cannot design today a perfect set of policies that are going to get you through the energy transition. It is going to happen incrementally. You're going to have to be agile around your policy making, and it's only with time that this thing's going to develop. You have to think more programmatic about your policies rather than just single policies now that are going to stand the test of time over 10 years.
My next question to you, Louis, what does the future look like in terms of the technology that's been deployed and potentially moving towards greener fuels?
A very good point. I think a lot of the technologies we'll be talking about in 5 years from now, even in 10, will be very different than the technologies we talk about today. So one, you're going to have a new set of technologies coming into this. The second side of it is that you're going to find that your current technologies will have to develop significantly to be part of the future flexibility mix. That means that even something like your thermal technologies, the engines, etc., they will have to adapt. First of all, they'll be able to have to run blends of future fuels, and then gradually, once they reach that tipping point, they'll have to be able to convert into full-blown future fuel engines. Also, because they're going to run less and less hours, because you're going to try and minimize those technologies, they're going to be essential, but you want to make as much room for renewable opportunities as possible. It's also going to mean that they're going to have much longer asset lifespans. Also, what we're going to see is that they're going to run much more autonomously. It is not a high labor kind of activity because the running hours will be coming down. So the hours that it does run will be absolutely essential, but the frequency of the hours are going to come down. And that means we can expect to see much more development around autonomous plants. Both of these things we're driving very strongly. So both our whole future fuel portfolio, but also the autonomous plants aspect and the life cycle management has become incredibly important in our portfolio.
I was going to ask, so digitalization and automation are absolutely crucial.
Yes, and especially with the digitalization, it is not about the digitalization of a single function. It's going back to my original comment about flexibility being systematic. It runs right throughout the system. And the ability for that plant to talk in seconds and milliseconds to the needs of the user or the needs of the utility or the needs somewhere else in the grid and how that runs through the grid is going to make a massive difference. And hearing today, people were talking a lot about grid optimization. So not building a grid as big as you can, but building it as big as you really will need it. The only way that can work is if you have a digitalized infrastructure that can respond to the grid needs as quick as possible.
A complex ecosystem indeed. Louis, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. And for more insights, please join the Inlet community.